Martin, best known as the Beatles record producer, had a long and varied musical career, and he still has a rare reputation as one of popular music's actual good people. Martin was born on January 3, 1926, into a working-class family in Drayton Park, England. Because of his substantial involvement in the Beatles' initial recordings, he was dubbed the fifth Beatle. Martin's career in music, cinema, television, and live performance spans more than 6 decades. He produced humor and novelty records in the 1950s and early 1960s, working with Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan, and Bernard Cribbins, among others, before working with the Beatles and other mainstream musicians. We're going to discuss George Martin's life and death today. Please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel before we begin. Life and work. Martin was born on January 3, 1926, in Highbury, London, and had a musical upbringing. His uncle worked for a piano firm, and he was already composing his music on the instrument by the age of 6. While still in high school, he formed the Four Tune Tenors, a corny dancing band. But it wasn't until his family fled London at the outbreak of World War II that music became a genuine love for him. Martin was a new student at Bromley Grammar School when he witnessed the BBC Symphony Orchestra perform Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, and it transformed his life. I vividly recall hearing a symphonic orchestra for the first time. Sir Adrian Boult brought the BBC Symphony Orchestra to my school for a public concert when I was in my teens. It was very incredible. It was difficult for me to connect such magnificent sounds with 90 men and women blowing into brass and wooden instruments or scraping strings with horsehair bows. Martin enlisted in the Navy after graduating from high school in 1943. After spending almost a year training in Trinidad, he became an aerial observer and commissioned officer despite never having engaged in combat. It was a journey that sparked a lifelong passion for the Caribbean. He later opened a recording studio in Montserrat. Martin used to entertain troops by playing the piano while serving, which led to an invitation to perform on Navy Mixture, a BBC World Service entertainment program that included novelty, music, and comedic sketches. He declined an opportunity to form a naval music ensemble. Still, when the war ended and he was let off in 1947, he used his veteran's allowance to enroll in a course at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, where he studied the oboe and piano. Despite his ability to play the oboe, he soon realized he wasn't good enough to pursue it as a career. Apparently, he sold his instrument and purchased a house with the proceeds. Martin worked for the BBC's classical music department after graduating from the Guildhall and was shortly headhunted by Oscar Prouse, the head of EMI's Parlophone Records. They requested him to work as his assistant in 1950. He subsequently claimed the corporation. "I didn't even know what EMI stood for." So began a remarkable career in the music industry, despite Parlophone being one of EMI's lesser and less essential labels at the time. Martin started his career by recording classical and Baroque music before moving on to jazz. He produced bandleader and trumpet pioneer Humphrey Lyttelton, with whom Radiohead later collaborated on Life in a Glass House. Martin took over the label after Prouse resigned in 1955. He turned to comic performers to keep Parlophone viable because he didn't have the luxury of being able to release big-selling American imports. Martin's work with Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan, and The Goon Show became legendary. He received his first major break as a producer in 1961, working on the Beyond the Fringe cast album, which featured Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Alan Bennett, and Jonathan Miller. A meeting with the Beatles. Sid Coleman of Ardmore and Beechwood phoned Martin and told him about Brian Epstein, the manager of a band he had met. Even though they had been rejected by Decca Records, he thought Martin might be interested in the band. Martin had had less success with popular music until that time, despite having number 1 and number 4 songs with the Temperance 7 and number 3 and number 5 hits with Matt Monro in 1960-61. Additional releases included Jerry Lorden's Who Could Be Bluer and singles with Shane Fenton. Following Coleman's phone call, Martin set up a meeting with Brian Epstein on February 13, 1962. Martin listened to a Decca tape and believed Epstein's band was very unpromising. While he enjoyed the sound of Lennon and McCartney singing, he kept in touch with Epstein and asked him to an audition the following month after a make-or-break meeting in which their manager presented their case in May. Martin was not present for the session and was not pleased with the results. But when he later met the band and saw their witty sense of humor and God-given knack for wordplay, he chose to sign them solely on the basis of their personalities. Without a doubt, he and EMI would have scrutinized the arrangement, which gave the band a dismal royalty rate, as though they stood to lose nothing. The rest, as they say, is history. Martin's tense relationship with Ringo's star, session musician Andy White played on the Beatles' debut single, Love Me Do. His suggestion that Lennon and McCartney speed up Please Please Me, and subsequent accurate declaration, Gentlemen, you have just made your first #1 record. His pioneering echo use on And I Love Her, that opening chord on A Hard Day's Night, that closing chord on A Day in the Life, he took their already fantastic melodies and improved them. Martin was also the glue that held Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band together as a monumental record in 1967, and he served as spiritual guidance to the band from the beginning, alongside Epstein. The stresses and burdens of Beatlemania were claimed to be temporarily shelved by all 4 members when they closed the door to Studio 2, Abbey Road, but Martin gave more salvation. He vacationed with John Lennon and his first wife Cynthia, accompanied the band on their groundbreaking first trips to America, remained astutely aloof when it came to their dalliance with harder drugs, introduced McCartney to classical music, and served as a perennially calming influence throughout the never-ending whirlwind of their ever-expanding world as a family man, or a grown-up, and real musician, as they jokingly referred. When the Beatles broke up in 1969, he was dragged into a slew of legal and personal issues involving all 4 members, and he was frequently chastised for his comments in interviews about their commercial drug dealings. Martin remained close to all 4 Beatles in the years following their separation, despite problems, as Lennon noted in a letter to Martin in September 1971, now published in the John Lennon Letters. He'd never work on another project as big as them again. But he had a lot of success in the 1970s with the LA-based British band America, and in film, he scored one of the most iconic and best-loved James Bond themes, Paul McCartney's Live and Let Die, in 1973. By the end of the decade, though, he had trouble hearing. In a 2012 interview with the Wall Street Journal, he claimed, "Nobody warned us that listening to loud music for too long might create damage. I was in the studio for 14 hours straight at a time and never took a break to let my ears heal." Life after the Beatles. Martin, a lifelong producer, left EMI in the mid-1960s after the company refused to raise his salary. Despite the Beatles being the world's most famous band, he was still earning the same as before he signed them, and founded Associated Independent Recording, AIR, effectively becoming self-employed and working on a freelance basis. In 1969, he established the Air Studio Complex, first located on Oxford Street in London, and then at Lyndhurst Hall in Hampstead. The XX, Oasis, Adele, Coldplay, Muse, Paul Weller, Mark Ronson, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mystery Jets, U2, and many more have all been recorded there. After taking a break from studio work in the mid-1980s, Martin went on to host several important BBC music series, speaking with luminaries such as Brian Wilson, Rick Rubin, and Paul McCartney about the craft of songwriting and recording. Martin has contributed to the principal themes of 3 James Bond films, both directly and indirectly. Despite the fact that Martin did not compose the music for the second James Bond film, From Russia with Love, he was responsible for Matt Monro signing to EMI just months after he recorded the song of the same name. Martin hosted The Rhythm of Life, a 3-part BBC co-produced documentary series in 1997-98, in which he discussed various aspects of musical composition with professional musicians and singers, including Brian Wilson, Billy Joel, and Celine Dion. In the United States, the series aired on the Ovation Television Network. In 1979, George Martin wrote an informal introduction to sound recording called All You Need Is Ears, which detailed his work with the Beatles and other artists. In 1993, he wrote Summer of Love, The Making of Sgt. Pepper, co-authored with William Pearson and produced by George Martin. 50 Years in Recording, a 6-CD retrospective of his entire studio career in 2001. Genesis Publications produced Playback, his limited edition graphic autobiography in 2002. Death. Martin died peacefully in his sleep on March 8, 2016 at the age of 90 at his home in Wiltshire, England. Ringo Starr confirmed his death on Twitter, and a spokesperson for Universal Music Group confirmed his death. His cause of death was not revealed. So that concludes the events surrounding Sir George Martin's life. Martin surely will be remembered for a long time by the fans of the Beatles. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more related content and leave a comment on how interesting you found this video.